Skipper?
Thank you, Doctor.
As the minuteness of the parts formed a great hindrance to my speed, I resolved, therefore, to make the creature of a gigantic stature. Of course. That would simplify everything.
In other words, his veins, his feet, his hands, his organs would all have to be increased in size.
Exactly.
He would have an enormous Schwanzstücke.
That goes without saying.
Oof.
He's going to be very popular.
Chris Scouser here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss the post-rapture horror film Azrael, featuring current Scream queen Samara Weaving. Does the mostly dialogue-less film, Matt, deliver the scares and dread? Or does that kind of just end up feeling like a gimmick? And is that Esperanto I hear? Then there's going to be the death-defying rundown of the big releases on physical media, featuring your streaming and Viper video picks of the week. And then Matt and I are going to close out the show by sharing our 5 favorite political thrillers, apropos of absolutely nothing. So we're recording this on Tuesday night. Let's hope, well, we'll see how things go. But let's start everything off, though, with a clip from Azrael.
Dios mío. Jules, estás bondita. ¿Ah? Zit kan weer vast. Frenesietjes ook, joh. Ah, in orde.
It sounds like a relatively fine little drive to the countryside. Matt, what is Azrael all about?
Well, as you said in the opening, it is many years past the rapture. There is a cult that lives in the woods of somewhere that has determined that speaking is a sin. So they have immuted themselves so that they cannot speak. A pair of individuals, one played by Samara Weaving, named Azrael, she and her lover or boyfriend, whatever, have escaped, and the rest of the cult is hunting her down.
You know, there's a pretty good Pet Shop Boys song called, I think it's actually called To Speak is a Sin. So just thought of that now. Just popped in my head. I like the Pet Shop Boys. Matt, what are your thoughts on the rapture? The fact that it is mostly dialogue-less. And yes, that is indeed Esperanto. For the uninitiated, Esperanto was a made-up language that was featured in the film Succubus, featuring Bill Shatner, which I believe is getting a Blu-ray, if not 4K treatment relatively soon. So I'm sure it'll end up in my collection at some point. But Esperanto was like kind of developed to be this world language that everybody could learn, so everybody could speak the same language. It didn't really catch on, and I think the only major use of it actually was that film. But it shows up here, which I found to be fun, an interesting little thing. I'm like, why does that cadence or why does that sound familiar to me? Mm-hmm. So I had to look it up. Not that I would know or can speak Esperanto, but it just, if you're going to make a decision to introduce language in a film that is mostly silent, at least speaking-wise, I think that was a very clever little decision to make. Matt, what are your thoughts on Azrael? Is it a kind of a little gimmicky film, or were you, were you on the edge of your little seat on your couch all freaked out?
Yeah, I mean, it is definitely a gimmicky film. I mean, the fact that she doesn't speak throughout the whole thing is obviously a gimmick. I think overall it works pretty well. It's got some good gore effects. The monsters in it are pretty creepy. You can still kind of follow along with what's going on. It's a tight less than 90 minutes, which I'm a huge fan of, as movies seem to stretch longer and longer and longer. So, you know what? Is it earth-shattering? No. Is it the best horror movie I've seen this year? No. But is it fun? Yeah, it's a good little thrill ride that has enough going for it to keep it interesting.
Yeah, I think this mostly worked. Part of it is kind of right in my wheelhouse. We got cults. It's the post-rapture. We have some gnarly gore and horror kind of associated violence. There's subversion kind of the cult thing too, where they're basically what? There's the leader is perhaps going to give birth to the savior, right? Mm-hmm. Of the people that have been left behind and maybe escalate or elevate them to heaven after the rapture, but things go horribly wrong there. And also, too, I think it doesn't give us a lot to work on, right? The narrative, there's no alliteration, there's no, exposition, really. We're kind of dropped into this film and kind of have to piece everything together as it progresses, which I appreciated, though. I think it doesn't give us a lot to work on, and you really got to kind of put it together on your own. And if you're looking to have your hand held, or perhaps just a little exposition, independent of some of these little title card, Bible verse-y looking things, I don't know if this is going to work for you. I mean, it requires a lot of, I think, attention into detail and figuring things out as it goes. But I enjoyed that aspect of it. I will say, too, Matt, it has kind of a relentless tempo to it. The pacing, I think, really keeps you on the edge of your seat. She is constantly, basically, under attack throughout the entire film. And I think Weaving carries this film almost effortlessly. I think this must have been quite the ordeal for her to film. Lots of running, lots of reaction and screaming, but with no voice, and lots of getting thrown around, though I'm sure there was stunt work, but still, I don't think this may have been a, this is not everybody getting together down in the Caribbean to shoot Jaws 4 because it's so beautiful out, right? I really enjoyed it. I think Katz definitely directs this, though I will say, I think he comes a little close to overdoing things with the dodges and redirects. There's a bunch of different times where the way he frames her or the characters, it hides what's happening off screen. So then it provides a bit of a jump scare, or like, when you think, they're about to get out of something and then all of a sudden somebody comes out of nowhere type of thing. That kind of happens a few too many times. And I think maybe it may lean a bit too much on previously existing material. Maybe it's just loving homages. I don't know. But the cult, how they communicate, they kind of whistle with each other, which I think was almost a direct pull from The Last of Us Part 2, the video game, because there's basically this cult that lives in the woods that's how they communicate when they're stalking prey, is by whistling. I think the monsters themselves are very reminiscent to me. Now, they're kind of they feed on blood, and they're kind of these half man, half demon kind of creatures. But they're very reminiscent to me of like forest dwelling, The Descent monsters. Right. That's kind of what they look like. Neil Marshall's The Descent, those creatures. So it may get a little derivative sometimes with a couple of those things, but overall, I actually really enjoyed this. I think the 82-minute runtime really works just because of this Weaving's constantly character in peril film. It has a lot of momentum, and the kills are particularly gory and gnarly at times. So, and I also, too, I'd like to compliment the score. I think the music by Todi Gudmundsson, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, clearly felt like he's a student of Cliff Martinez to me. Cliff Martinez, probably my favorite working composer right now for films, and it had this kind of ethereal synthesizer sound to it, which was nice and creepy and eerie, and did a really great job for me of setting the mood. What do you think, Matt? Disagree? Agree with any of that?
No, I mean, I don't disagree with any of it. I think it's it's a solid little B, action horror thriller thing that has some supernatural elements, some gory elements, some peril. I think it's a good time, and I thought the score was good too, and it definitely was very atmospheric with the surrounding, walking around in the cold woods for the whole time. I try not to think too much about how did people learn to think if nobody's ever spoke before, but And what does the rest of the world look like? Why does that guy have a Cybertruck? Like the guy who's speaking Esperanto. They're living in tents, and he's got an electric truck with LEDs all over it. But who am I? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, I know. Part of me was thinking about that. Like, would I want to see an expanded Azrael universe? Like, what other groups of people, where they're living and how they've survived? This feels like I don't know if this is spoilery, but kind of like maybe even like a village kind of scenario. Right? Where you have this isolated group, and maybe they've isolated themselves from civilization. The rest of civilization is actually kind of humming along okay. Right? It's just that these people have confined themselves to this wooded area. So, I don't know. That would be interesting. But then part of me is like, well, I kind of like how self-contained it is. And the air of mystery of not knowing what else is happening kind of adds potentially something to it. How do you feel about the ending of the film with the potential reveal of...
I mean, it's a little out of left field, but I mean... Maybe. I mean, it's... I don't think we should say just because it's the kind of climax of the film and kind of everything kind of comes together at that point. But I think overall, I think it's fine. You've kind of already established this whole, religion aspect of it, and it fits. And it's a nice little, it's a nice little shock gag at the end there that I think works overall.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We have established in this cinematic experience, this story, the rapture did indeed occur, right? Mm-hmm. There's no questioning it. It's not like it's a doubt. It's a doubt, or they're operating under some false assumption because of some kind of apocalyptic event. They do it's spelled out from the beginning, and like in the title card, that this is years after the rapture. So,
right,
yeah. All right. How do you think how do you roll? Would you get pulled in the rapture? I don't know if I'm going to make the cut initially.
I don't think either one of us are going to make the cut. To be quite honest with you, I think there's too much.
I wonder what I would do
if something like the rapture event is going to happen, and the only kind of certain subsect of Christianity that really talks about the rapture and really kind of focuses on it. If those are the kinds of people that go, you and I are definitely not going to go. Although I will say this, the whole thing about, demons and all that kind of stuff, maybe disconcertingly, I mean, in the stories, the Bible or whatever, that the Antichrist will show up, be charismatic, he'll bring peace to everything, and you'll have peace for 7 years and stability and all that kind of stuff. And then after that is when Jesus comes back and starts fucking everything up.
All right.
So you don't want it. So after the rapture, peace is a lie. Like, you don't want there to be peace if this whole thing is to be believed.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. I'm going to note that right here.
Mm-hmm.
No peace. Done. If you had a chance to see... Oh, I got to give a grade, Matt. I'm going B+, Azrael.
Oh, yeah. I think I'm going to give it a B.
All right. There you go. Though Azrael had a limited runtime in the theaters, it is currently streaming on Shudder. We've got a chance to see it. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. You may be asking yourself, wait, why didn't you guys go to the theaters this week? Well, we had some scheduling issues. Matt has Nora, which I'm very upset about. I don't. I get it this week. I have Juror number 2, which Matt did not get. So we decided, well, we'd basically swap them, right? So I'll watch Juror 2, he'll watch Nora, and then next week we'll do both, because they should both be out at that point. But it turns out that Juror number 2 is actually going to, it looks like it may get pulled this week. It's going to be in the theater for a week. And hopefully we'll cover it for the show, because I'll tell you, Matt, it's worth seeing. And that's all I'll say, because maybe we'll hit it at some point. But I'm very disappointed. They say maybe it'll show up on Max by the end of the year. I don't know what Warner Brothers is thinking. Who knows what Zaslav is up to at this point? I have absolutely no idea. I'm sure, though, he's not going to want to run into Clint Eastwood in a dark alley after pulling his film after a week, and also almost doing no fanfare or, not publication. What are you talking? No stuff for it at all to kind of push it out there, right? So, weird. I don't get it. I really don't. I don't know what the hell that guy's up to. So, anyway, we'll confirm for you at the end of the show what we're talking about next week. But let's talk about what's coming up in physical media this upcoming Tuesday, November 12th. Here is a new film coming out in 4K.
Can I have that? Did you bring that here to me?
You got to count to 10.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Ew! God!
Let me see.
Nuh-uh. Hey, could you do me a favor?
Oh, anything you want, child.
Could you get me a hairspray, some hairspray, and a set of rollers?
Oh, you wait right here. Now, you just wait right here.
And could you bring me some pens also and some other junk?
You just wait.
And could you bring me some lipstick, pink, frosted?
You wait now.
Here you go.
Maxwell, slide. There's my picture.
That's an old mug shot of me.
Well, I look like shit in that picture.
You look more like convict than I do.
It's a patrol academy. It's worse than jail.
Matt, that is a clip from Steven Spielberg's Sugarland Express featuring Goldie Hawn, being released in 4K this upcoming Tuesday, November 12th. Matt, let's start our countdown here. In fact, I don't even know if I have 5, so we'll figure it out.
Number 5?
Heavenly Bodies is being released by Fun City. Man, the 80s were such a great time. A small dancer-sized studio fights for its existence against the unscrupulous owner of a rival club. The conflict boils down to a dance marathon to settle the score. You just don't see that kind of stuff anymore. Let's put on a play to raise money for the community center. Features new interviews with the star Cynthia Dale, a new audio commentary, and a couple new essays that are going to be in a booklet that's only going to be included in the first pressing of the film. Arrow is releasing a 4K and Blu-ray release of The Invasion. This is the only bad, I think, version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is the one with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig. There's a Dolby Vision HDR presentation of the film, brand new audio commentary, some archival features, and a couple other things. I bought this digitally for like $5 when we were doing the Body Snatchers marathon on Screen Run. That's, I think, the only really suggestion I could ever tell you to justify paying for this. It's just not great because it's a film that doesn't know what it is. I think they had reshoots and a whole bunch of other stuff, and it's just a big old mess. So that's that. 3.
I'm giving you to the count of 3 to get out of here. Then I'm coming across the kitchen shooting.
I'm going to go with Severin is releasing All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2. This is their box set of folk horror films. This set includes To Fire You Come at Last, Psychomania, The Enchanted, Who Fears the Devil, The White Reindeer, Edge of the Knife, Born of Fear, Io Island, Scales, Bakaneko, A Vengeful Spirit, Nang Nak, Sundal Belong, Susanna, the Queen of Black Magic, Beauty and the Beast, The Ninth Heart, Demon, November, Latan, Blood Tea and Red String, Nazareno Cruz and the Wolf, Akalar, From the Old Earth, The City of the Dead, and The Rites of May. Matt, 24 films from 18 different countries. And that's 55 combined hours of new and archival special features, a 252-page hardcover book featuring newly commissioned folk horror fiction by writers such as Ramsey Campbell, Cassandra Caw, Eden Royce, with illustrations by Drazen Kozjan, and a whole bunch more. So if you like folk horror, Severin has served up another box set for you. Number two.
I have 2 words. Perfect love and perfect trust.
Yeah, perfectly fits. Arrow is also putting out in 4K Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Brand new 4K restoration. We also have some audio commentaries from 2017. And then some other kind of making of featurettes. I don't see a lot of new special features on this one, but if you're an Elvira fan, now's your chance to pick it up in 4K. And of course, number 1, there can be only one. From Criterion, brand new 4K restoration of one of the greatest films of all time, The Seven Samurai, being released. 2 audio commentaries, a making of documentary, and more. Now, Matt, I'd not order the Criterion version, because this one has like outtakes from like a documentary and some other stuff. I ordered the BFI one from the UK, which also supposedly, I think their bitrate on the transfer is going to be higher than Criterion's, if I'm remembering correctly. So I already own Seven Samurai on Blu-ray, but I ordered the BFI, but unfortunately the BFI one was delayed. I think it's going to be a couple more weeks before that one comes out, and I got to wait for it to show up here in the States. But if you're fine with the Criterion release, you can pick up the Seven Samurai in 4K. Also, other films in 4K, Criterion is releasing the original, not the Pacino De Palma film, Scarface. It's a brand new 4K restoration, includes the alternate ending from the censored version of the film, and a couple new interviews. Also, Born on the 4th of July, the Tom Cruise film being released in 4K from Shout Factory. New audio commentaries and new interviews, including one with Oliver Stone. We talked about the Sugarland Express. Then finally, Matt, your Viper Video pick of the week. Make sure you head on over to vipervideotampa.com or give Shelby a call and say, hey, Shelby, are you going to get Infinite Santa 8000? In a post-apocalyptic world, 1,000 years after war, famine, and greed ended humanity, mutant scum and robo-people fight to survive. Oh, and Santa's now a killer. It includes audio commentary by the creators and more. Matt, what should we be streaming this week?
Well, I finally caught up with Oddity on Shudder. It's about a woman who was murdered in her house, and her, after the fact, her medium/psychic blind twin sister comes to the house to try and get a sense of what really happened.
So you're recommending it, so you really enjoyed it, huh?
I don't know if I enjoyed it. Fair. I don't know if I really enjoyed it, but I think it's as good. It's a good kind of European supernatural, kind of twisty, plotted supernatural element horror film. It's got some interesting little scares in it, and it's got some kind of twists and turns in it, and it's nasty at points. So I think it's a good watch on the Shudder streaming service.
All right, Matt, let's close out the show and share our 5 favorite political thrillers. Here's one that didn't really make the cut for me, because even though it certainly has political aspirations, I don't know if people probably think of it more as like a superhero action film.
Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. First, the overture. Yes, the strings. Listen carefully, can you hear it? Now the brass.
I can hear it. Look outside, Mummy. They're playing music. How did you do that?
Wait, here comes the crescendo.
Matt, Hugo Weaving and Natalie Portman star in V for Vendetta, the adaptation of the classic graphic novel. Didn't make the cut for me, but I wanted to give it a quick honorable mention. I've been meaning to revisit that for a while. I don't think I've watched it since it came out. I bought that Blu-ray, and it's been sitting in my collection ever since. What are your memories of V for Vendetta? Were you a fan of that one?
It has its moments. There are parts that I really like about it. There's parts that I don't think are entirely successful. I think it's an interesting experiment. I actually did pull out the DVD and watch it probably 2-3 months ago, and it's like I said, my opinion on it hasn't really changed. It's an interesting little oddity in that oeuvre, or that filmography of the everybody involved.
Okay. All right. Good. There you go. So once you start us off, Matt, what's your 5th favorite political thriller?
All right. So my 5th favorite political thriller is going to be one that's not really about U.S. politics or anything like that. It's going to be Munich by Steven Spielberg. Essentially, it's about 11 Israeli athletes are killed at the Olympics by Palestinian terrorists in 1972. So Israel, being Israel, decides that they're not going to take that lying down, and they put together a team of assassins led by Avner Kaufman, played by Eric Bana, to go hunt down the offenders and bring them to justice. It's a kind of taut, I hesitate to call it a spy thriller, but it is has a bit of espionage to it. You know, it has these cool action scenes, but as they kind of progress through this, you get some kind of ambiguity, and is what they're doing really righteous? And I think it's a very interesting look about something that's still, a political relationship that is still having repercussions, obviously, right through to right now at this particular hour.
Yeah, as we record this show at this exact moment. Yes.
Exactly, yes.
So my number 5, then I'm going to go with Michael Mann's The Insider. I think that counts as a political thriller because of the involvement of the government. But this is the film in regards to 60 Minutes interviewing Weingart. There, why am I getting that? Why I'm getting his last name wrong? Russell Crowe and Al Pacino and Christopher Plummer also, who plays Mike Wallace in the film. But basically, the whistleblower who revealed that the cigarette companies knew that cigarettes caused cancer for decades and hid the information, and just the intrigue and the threats and everything that he had to deal with when he came forward. And eventually, Congress was able to kind of, I guess they had hearings on it and everything, so we were able to get them all on the record and all that stuff. But still, it's a thriller that plays out almost like an action film. It's very intense. It's very scary at things at times, and it has one of my favorite scenes with. Now I'm blanking on the guy's name. I'm gonna have to pull it up now. And Bruce McGill, there he is. He plays the attorney, and he deposes the guy, and the attorneys for the cigarette companies are going to give him a hard time, and he just snaps at him. Just Google Bruce McGill, The Insider deposition, and you can look it up on YouTube, and it's fantastic. But the whole film, from start to finish, is again, that's his name. His life basically falls apart because he tries to do the right thing. So The Insider is my 5.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So my number 4 then is the 1962, not the Denzel version of The Manchurian Candidate. Essentially, a platoon of American soldiers get captured in the Korean War. They are brainwashed and then sent back to the U.S. as sleeper agents for communist Russia. Stars Lawrence Harvey, Frank Sinatra, and it is this kind of Cold War era McCarthyism, Red Scare paranoia film. But really what sells this thing for me is Angela Lansbury as the undercover handler agent from communist Russia. That is, she just really sells the thing as far as gaslighting, to use a term that's overused, but truly gaslighting people as what is happening is not really happening.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick. My number 4 then is in fact, this may be recency bias. I just watched it this week because I know we were going to do this list, and I'd never seen it, and I own it. So I'm like, let me finally watch it. And I was really impressed, and I really liked it a lot. And that's Alan J. Pakula's The Parallax View with Warren Beatty.
Mm-hmm.
Beatty plays a reporter, and a senator is assassinated right in front of him. And a friend of his, ex-girlfriend, kind of comes to his house and says, like, I'm terrified that they're going to kill me. All these people associated around the senator have all mysteriously died on weird kind of things. Or maybe it's a heart attack, accident, whatever the case may be. And she's like, I think I'm next. And then she dies. And though he's as a reporter, he kind of goes undercover there to try and figure out what's happening. And the whole thing, it's just so relentlessly, I don't know if morose is the right word, but man, it just, as he figures things out and he goes undercover to join this potential organization, all the dominoes that fall, and every time that Pakula gives us another reveal of what's happening, and it just feels more and more like inevitable. And by the end of the film, you're like, oh God, this is horrible. This is absolutely, there's nothing you can do. There's really nothing you can do. And it's such a downer kind of a film, but I think it keeps you riveted and interested the entire time. What's really fascinating about it, too, is, and I was researching this, that there was a writer's strike at the time. Based on a book. So they had a grounding, but they still were adapting and changing things, the director and Beatty, as the film went. I guess originally in the original screenplay, he actually was a cop, and they changed it to a reporter and a couple other changes, too. But I don't know. I was really impressed by The Parallax View.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it, so I'll have to check it out based on your recommendation. All right, so my number 3 then is, I think, the best of any of Tom Clancy's adaptions. It's the last, I think, great Cold War thriller in The Hunt for Red October. Obviously, it's about a Russian submarine captain who has this kind of weapon that can't be stopped, that would be turn possibly the tide of the Cold War, being able to run completely silent using a basically jet propulsion system for a submarine in the water. And he decides that he's going to defect and bring that over to the United States with his crew. And of course, Alec Baldwin plays Jack Ryan, the recurring character, many times played by various different folks. But he's put in charge, the CIA in charge, trying to bring General Ramius in from the cold. Now, I think Sean Connery is a lot of fun in this. Now, he, again, doesn't even try to put on a Russian accent, but you know what? It works. It still works, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's got, it's, as far as the quintessential submarine movie, it's, you know, top tier, and then it's also a great Cold War political thriller.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. I think it was at one point in my top 5, and maybe I should have, because The Insider, the more I think about it, is it really so much a political thriller? I'm not sure. And then I have my recency bias with the Parallax View, but yeah, Hunt for October is great. I also really like Clear and Present Danger a lot too. Yeah, but Hunt for October, I think it's the best of the Harrison Ford ones, and probably the second best of all of the films, all the Jack Ryan films. But yeah, that's a good one. Matt, then my number 3 at the moment, then 2 is 3 Days of the Condor by Sidney Pollack, featuring Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway. Redford is kind of he's just a CIA kind of researcher and a code breaker, and he comes back to his office after heading out, I think it was for lunch, and everybody in his office is dead. And he has to run and figure out what kind of happened and why his whole team was killed and why do they want him dead as well. And just another great kind of, you know, remember the 70s were a big time when it came to the kind of paranoia, political thrillers, everything that happened with the Nixon administration. And 3 Days of the Condor, which I think I saw the first time last year, is great. And Max von Sydow, too, plays the hitman, slowly kind of tracking Redford down to try and kill him, also is fantastic in it. So that's my 3.
Yeah, the 3 Days of the Condor is a great film. That is a lot of fun. All right, so then my number 2 then is probably going to get a reaction from Chris, and I'm sorry if this is something you don't feel should be this low, or maybe if I'm even stealing your thunder. But my number 2 is All the President's Men, which is basically based on the book by Woodward and Bernstein about Deep Throat and the Watergate scandal. If you want to see the clicky-clack of typewriters and basically sitting in a newsroom bullpen in the 60s, 70s, and just kind of everything being based on political intrigue. This is, I think, maybe the pinnacle of that type of film. It is, if you haven't seen it, it's a much watch, so you're going to have to check it out. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, that was in my list for a while too, but I don't know. I just wanted to go a different route. So my number 2 is The Manchurian Candidate. Matt's, 4, 5?
4.
But Angela Lansbury in that is just, like you said, is absolutely terrifying. And I think even though she's only 10 years older than the character who plays her son in the film. But that one scene when we're going through the brainwashing and going back and forth, between what's really happening and what's being kind of projected or watched there is fantastic. And she is chilling and terrifying in that film. And also Sinatra is fantastic in it too. But yeah, Manchurian Candidate's my number 2.
Okay, I'm interested to see what's in your number 1 then. So my number 1 then is a film that is endlessly rewatchable to me by one of my, I guess, new favorite directors. He's kind of elevated himself up into the pantheon of my favorite directors, and it's Denis Villeneuve's Sicario, about the kind of war on drugs and a DEA agent who gets wrapped up in a CIA operation, and she quickly realizes that she's in over her head, and just that the machinations of everything that's moving around her, at best she doesn't matter, and at worst she's an obstacle to be removed. And it is just a fascinating look at kind of the corruption in the American government, the kind of American imperialism, taking which one is worse, a bunch of spooks and mercenaries fighting a bunch of violent cartel members down in Mexico and South America as well. So and Benicio del Toro puts on, I think, one of my favorite performances. I mean, and the kind of climactic scene in that at the dinner table is one of the most chilling scenes and one of my favorite film scenes that I've ever seen.
Yeah, Sicario, not only is it just action-packed and thrilling, it's also just gorgeous, too. I mean, some of the shots in that film are stunning. And I'm embarrassed that I forgot to include it on my list. And that is a absolutely great pick, Matt. My number one is shot in between The Godfather and Godfather Part 2. It's Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation, where Gene Hackman plays a surveillance expert. He's hired by a young Harrison Ford to record this couple in a park. And all he's able to get out of the recording basically is like, he'd kill us if he got the chance. And he's then obsessed to kind of figure out what had happened, and then things start to happen around him. He gets more and more paranoid about what's happening, and I think the film just ends absolutely brilliantly, and Hackman is just fantastic in it. I think it's one of the best films of the 70s. If you haven't seen The Conversation, you absolutely should as soon as possible. So that's my number one. Matt, any honorable mentions?
Yeah, I got a few. 3 Days of the Condor, Marathon Man, Chinatown, Zero Dark 30, and back to the left itself, JFK.
There you go. I would throw in Syriana. I liked Argo, Mississippi Burning, if you're in for a little white savior kind of stuff. Clint's Absolute Power, another film with him and Gene Hackman, is a film I always kind of enjoyed. Frost Nixon is pretty good. I always liked the 13 Days as well, about the Cuban Missile Crisis, so I haven't seen that in a long time. Blowout, and then I think Good Night and Good Luck, Clooney's film, is actually pretty good. Oh, and The Contender. Matt mentioned All the President's Men, but The Contender with Joan Allen is really, really good too, and I think criminally underappreciated. So that's it. What's your favorite political thriller? Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, what's coming up next week on the big show? As far as
well, I think we're going to checking out Nora, right? I've seen it, so you're going to go see it. And tentatively on there was Heretic, which I think we both wanted to see. So maybe we'll try and squeeze that in too as well. But it's really up to you, since you will now have to see 2 films.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm definitely going to see Nora. I actually already reserved my ticket. So, but yeah. Sounds good. In the meantime, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Do a search for The First Run. Scroll. Eventually you'll find us. Head on over to thefirstrun.com. You can find archives of all the old shows, as well as a report card and more. And then head over to Apple Podcasts. Give us a review to help other people find the show. And that's it. So we're going to go ahead and take an extended break. We love you all very much. Take care of yourselves, and we will see you soon.
Give you the truth, folks. The truth about America. I know you've got a lot of questions. You want to know why you're not getting the breaks you deserve. Well, I'm not a politician, but I've made it my business to study these things, and I happen to know the facts. Now, friends, I'm just an average American. But I'm an American, and some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil. I see people with foreign accents making all the money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
This fellow seems to know what he's talking about.
Yes, he knows all right.
What's the answer? What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little pamphlet. The truth about Negroes and foreigners. The truth about the Catholic Church. Now, friends, these books are free. Paid for by real Americans who want others to know the truth.
Excuse me, young man, but are you actually going to read that stuff?
Sure, why not? You heard what he said, didn't you?
Yes, I heard. But do you believe in that kind of talk?
I don't know. Makes pretty good sense to me.
I'm speaking to you as an American. And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this country our own until it's a country without. Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons.
What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason. Hey, that fella's talking about me.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us. Thank you.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Well, yes, but he was talking about... What about those other people?
But in this country, we have no other people. We are American people, all of us.
What about you? You aren't American, are you?
I was born in Hungary, but now I am an American citizen. And I have seen what this kind of talk can do. I saw it in Berlin.
What were you doing there?
I was a professor at the university. I heard the same words we have heard today. But I was a fool then. I thought Nazis were crazy people, stupid fanatics. But unfortunately, it was not so. You see, they knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation. Of course, that was not easy to do. They had to work hard to do it. You see, we human beings are not born with prejudices. Always they are made for us. Made by someone who wants something. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk. Somebody is going to get something out of it. And it isn't going to be you.